Motorola Tour. I'm leading a group of product managers at Motorola Solutions. We focus on the application services that run on our flagship device, the Apex Next and N70. So we're really aiming to deliver mission-critical communication software solutions end-to-end in the public safety space, as you mentioned, Mark. So I'd like to talk today about the future of product teams and AI, which I think is a hot topic. I'd like to first clarify something that, because I hear a lot of confusion when I hear AI product management or AI project management, or we really need to distinguish delivering products using AI. So the tools you would use to create those products versus having products that have AI in it. So those are two very different things. And I'd like to break those down in today's discussion and to give you details for both questions. So I'd like to ask you a question right now. What do you think the breakdown when we think about, on one hand, those AI products that have AI, how many features do you think today we ship that use AI versus I'm using AI to build my product? How much do you think we're using their AI to build our products? Any ideas? So first of all, products with AI, features with AI. What do you think the rough estimate is today? Any idea?
Are you asking percentage-wise or the number of products?
Yeah, percentage-wise. Like you think is like 30, 50, 80, 90%? What do you think?
Maybe 10, 15%. I don't know. 15% around. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Someone has a very precise answer. 36%. Okay, interesting. I mean, you'll probably see that I agree. It's probably less than 10% or even 5%. So when we look at all like the backlog, I mean, think about your life, right? When you think about what the product is and what you're getting, what has AI? Well, there's it's not everywhere, right? On the other hand, what do you think the percentage is for using AI in order to build a product? Any ideas?
Well, AI is not something new in the industry. It has been in the industry for many years, such as like the image detection. They use it for quality control. It's something that it has been developed like 10, 15 years ago. But like the booming, it has been recently, like it boomed for some reason. I don't know why. But most of the big industry companies, they use AI in their application assembly line using the robotics, the image processing. So it's very hard to predict like what will be the exact percentage, how they use it or like implement it. So it depends on the application.
I agree. So you're right, Chad. It's pretty much all over the plate.
Yeah.
So you see that first distinguishment is important, right? So I like to focus first on AI in products. So and I'll give you examples. I mean, it's phenomenal, right? I mean, we've seen that in many products which are on the consumer space. But at Motorola, for example, we delivered basically a communication system that does AI noise reduction. It's impressive compared with previous iterations we had. Smooth, the quality is just fantastic. Intelligibility. It removes like noises that like you could be outside, in the middle of an incident, and on the other side, the operator could hear like as if you were like in a room, at home, basically. We also have another functionality, which is for translation. We do live translations, 50 languages. We delivered that earlier this year. Amazing. How could we do that before? Like so many languages, like in a first iteration of a product. And again, the experience is outstanding, right? It's truly amazing. So, Jad, as you said, I would like to clarify, there's a lot of boom also as well for AI, perception. And at Motorola, we've been doing AI for a while. People just didn't talk about that, but yeah, for decades. And we're talking about like signal processing, right? Filtering noise from, antennas, communication systems, right? I mean, we certainly have been doing this. There's something I like to iterate. When we think about putting AI in a product, you really need to understand your audience. So there's a concept of deterministic versus probabilistic, right? So think about public safety. Do you think I could put something probabilistic for an officer to make a decision on? No, our customers don't want that. They're actually very skeptical about AI, surprisingly. So we came up even with a concept which are like the AI nutrition labels that we publish on the website on marketing. And people were asking me, oh yeah, that's actually to promote AI. Well, hold on, not really, right? It's really about making very clear to our customers what technology we're using for what purpose. And it's very important for us as part of the product team, right? Now we'll talk about the future for product management and product organizations. It's very important to really understand your customers, right? And continue your process the way you do. There's also other considerations that as part of a product team that you need to take into account. Product risks, for example, value risk, which is the lack of value when your customers don't buy or are unwilling to use a product. Also, usability. Is it too complicated, for example, your product? Customers cannot use it. They're not going to know how to interface maybe with the voice interactions that use AI or expect them to naturally speak. Probably they don't know what to say. And then ultimately there's lack of feasibility or business viability. So think about, well, you want to build a product that has AI. AI is not like the magic solution, so we should be able to build it, right? Can engineering build it? And then you also have like legal versus finance or business limitations as well. Maybe you can't pay for that. And ultimately, for those risks, we're adding the concept of responsible AI, which opens up like a completely new door for ethics, right? And considerations we need to take when we deliver our products. So from last week at Experience Center, do you recall the 2 phases I mentioned for the product, for building a product? Anyone? There's one that happens before and one that happens after. Does anyone remember that?
The research about, yeah. And
Very
then the
good.
design club, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, market research. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Mm.
We basically break it down in product discovery phase versus product delivery phase. So product discovery phase is what do you do in order to understand what you want to build with your product team? And the product delivery phase is now building, coding, creating your product or software, testing it, and then shipping it all there, right? So when we think about AI products, do you think that the discovery phase, which should happen like in a continuous mode, do you think is going to be more intense or less intense for AI products?
It should be more intense because obviously our customers demand deterministic and not probabilistic, right? So they're very skeptical about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's likely, I mean, every case is different, but it's likely going to be more intense because you need to track the model. I mean, in public safety, for example, an AI hallucination may be a big deal, right? So we need to keep on top of that. It adds actually more work for us to do that, right? But very powerful products, but they're demanding as well. And then the product discovery, as we said, which is about us talking to customers, user research, right? It has to happen. And actually, Marty Kagan said that like in his book, like actually, product discovery always happens. Everybody does it. There's a difference. You want to do it before the fact or after the fact. Oh, I shipped a product and maybe I should have done it in a different way, right? That's not where you want to go. So again, AI, with everything AI, that doesn't change. I mean, you really need to understand your customers and products, right? So, and then in the AI space for building AI products, the technology is really, you know, exponential and booming up. I mean, you probably heard, you know, I mean, we think about like the new MCP, model context protocol, which is putting some structure, in particular around agentic AI, right? So there's a lot more to come. I mean, it's for us even more. I mean, it's really been impressive. So the bottom line, which I definitely recommend as a strong product leader in your organization. First of all, think about AI as just a means to an end. What you want to do is build the right products first. AI will just be probably a way to get there. And any successful product team has to have a deep knowledge of the users and customers, the data, the business, and the market. Okay, there's no way to get around that. Actions, you know, for you, I would say, first of all, understand AI as much as you can. It's key more and more nowadays. And then if you're leaders in technology companies, hire the right people, really, or hire the people who really understand, the right engineers, you know, the right architects that can really deliver on that. If you really want to build like strong AI products, okay. I'd like to move now to using AI to build products. So anyone can tell me, what is a product team? Who are the key components for a product team? Who recalls that from last week?
User interface design, user experience, a UX team on its own. You know, getting to the niche, like what does the customer want actually, how it should be.
Product manager,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
lead,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
a program manager. Basically, these were three, but
And
you said that we
the
can take
technical product manager as well.
the research guy into this also.
Market research.
The
Good.
product marketing, sales, yeah, and tech and design. Yeah, I think I find these components important.
Good. You know, I'm glad you were really focused on that last week. Yeah, that's actually true, right? So we have user research, UI UX, product management, program management as well, right? That has to be involved in the loop. The tech lead or the architect, and also engineering or engineering managers, right? Which, you know, we collaborate. So for us, this is, you know, our day-to-day collaboration with a team. So how can AI help us, you know, with our day-to-day task? I mean, you name it, right? I don't need to, you know, give you long list here. You're probably very aware, but I mean, impressive, right? So ChatGPT, you know, it can do like it helps engineers code, analytics. You have tools such as Pendo, right? Figma for prototyping. Now it's also getting significant AI, even Adobe Photoshop, you know, when you want to put like a mockup, right? Like all like the products we're really using ultimately have more and more AI powered tools within or features that have a remarkable impact. And, you know, even if you ask me as a product manager, you know, in AHA, or you have more and more tools to help you write a PRD, a products requirement document, right? So we're definitely seeing more like an evolution here. Just examples, you know, from that I heard, I mean, from this week at the office. My research team, we perform like extensive research in the last few weeks to consolidate all the information. Instead of taking a whole day, it took them 1 hour, really, to consolidate all the stats that, you know, they collected from the research, queries, and also stat surveys. It's pretty impressive, right? But the researcher was there. You know, we just don't left that information alone to that person, to the tool, right? And I was actually putting together an analysis report that I was doing, analyzing the different components, electronic components from the industry. You know, with ChatGPT, I was able to get like I told exactly ChatGPT how I wanted the table with all the comparisons, pricing, size, features, etc. It was amazing, right? So I mean, these are just examples that I can name from this week. So there's a lot that's going to significantly going to help us a lot. However, it can also be a sensitive topic because people may think, oh, How about my job? I mean, that task I was just mentioning, the comparison, I would probably have gone to a junior in my team and say, hey, can you help me put this table and we'll review it in a couple of days. I didn't do that, right? So what's going to happen here for the future of product teams? So who's going to be impacted first if we look on that side of the coin? Think about manual tasks, right? Think about anything that is very mechanical. You have a risk. I mean, if your job today is going to Jira and sort information there, or going to spreadsheets and sorting your information over there, you're very likely at risk. I don't think that this is going to last very longer, right? So think about that. If you're in that position, think about upskilling. I mean, you're here in a program, right? I mean, that's exactly what what I would recommend. Bringing up your skills and then finding I would say an opportunity that will help you create. Being a creator moving forward, especially in the age of AI, it's especially important, right? And when we think about the product discovery versus a product delivery, the product delivery will probably be more impacted than the product discovery because there's more process and mechanical, I would say, functionality that happens there, right? And steps. However, on the other side, that was like the bad news, but the good news is that there are things that cannot be replaced with AI at all, right? Human skills. Mark, you mentioned that you were assigned one of the most complex tasks for Motorola, MTUG. Having to deal with this community. I mean, do you think AI could have replaced your duties at that time, even?
Well, it's funny. MTUG was the Motorola Trunk Users Group, and largely it was some of the most experienced people. They knew more about our equipment than many of the engineers, many of our own product managers. But they knew it kind of in a negative way. They knew kind of the deficiencies or perhaps the idiosyncrasies, and they would come with their complaint list, and they would almost like I don't know, I guess grasshoppers can become a swarm, when they're all agitated and they're all confined in the same space. So I mean, that same thing, we call them locusts, I guess, right? So I felt like I was being attacked by locusts sometimes because they were all over me, and I had to sort through, what the real issue was, try to get to the root cause. I tried to take an engineering approach, try to separate, which is difficult for customers, by the way, separate the problem from the solution. They come to us with all sorts of solutions, and it's just like, I want to hear the problems more than I want to hear the solutions, because the solutions could be constrained by what the customer believes is possible, but the engineers actually know what's really possible. So always bring the problems to the engineers and let them come up with the solutions, right? So that's one thing I learned. The other thing I learned is treat the customers with respect. Don't dismiss anybody or anything. Capture it if you can on a wall chart so that they see that you've captured it. Otherwise, they will never let it go, and they will harp on it. So capture it, move on, capture it, move on. Otherwise, I'd still be in those meetings, 20 years later. So, I learned a lot from those interactions. I think that's when they wanted to make me a product manager. And the irony is I got so wrapped up into Baltimore County that ultimately I was not allowed to become a product manager because I was so embedded in Baltimore County as the project manager. So I lived this dual life of kind of a product manager, but actually a project manager. And the company was determining in many ways which way my career went based on the need. The absolute need of the business, right?
Yeah. So, in this case, which was a very challenging situation, having to deal with this very savvy community, I have to say, AI could have potentially supported you, but you really had to be in control, right? There's no way a bot could have done what you did at that time.
No, it could have informed me better, I suppose, in real time, but I would have had to stop and somehow interact with a bot while I'm interacting with people. Those two things I don't think go well together today. I think that people would have felt slighted if I had stepped away to work on a keyboard for a few moments, and frankly, you don't go to those meetings for, on the spot solutions. You go to those meetings to prioritize the issues and to create action plans for the next meeting, right? Otherwise, I mean, if you're trying to fix problems in real time, I'd have to bring a squadron of coders with me, and that's not a good meeting. That would be a horrible meeting. So you're right. I don't think that particular scenario would have worked well with AI, right? But once I got back to the office, oh my God, AI would have been a lot of help.
It's definitely supports. I think the key here is human judgment, which is what you were doing, right, during those tasks. That really cannot, very likely go away, right? Just with AI, however, will help us a lot, as I was saying before. And you probably heard from Marty Kagan, which is he wrote the book Inspire, which I think I recommended to a couple of you last week. Definitely, if you like product management and want to understand the product teams, go for that. He said focus on outcomes, not outputs. It's very important, right? So when you're working as a product team, ultimately what you want to have is an impact. It's not the amount of information you get out, which AI does very well. It will generate a lot of information, a lot of output for you, right? But not necessarily outcomes. Another fundamental piece where AI may have a harder time at the moment is really product marketing. Does anyone remember or know what's the definition of product marketing? This one is a bit more tougher, but it's basically to drive product adoption by shaping market perception, through strategic marketing activities. I suggest you, I mean, if you're interested in that, there's a book from Martin Lauschenga, which is great. But ultimately, that market perception, right? That's something that, you may use a lot of AI tools, right? Which are going to be brilliant, but you really need to have like a full understanding. So we're going back to what I said before about the AI products, which doesn't really change. It's about the product as a strong product team. You need to, in order to be a successful product team, you need to have a deep knowledge of, number one, the users and customers, number two, the data, the business, and ultimately the market. There's no way to get around that, right? So for the future of product teams, definitely my recommendation is keep the sync function. You can continue using the sync function you have today if you're happy at your company, but really make sure you're empowering yourself by AI, right? So but when you think about like the age of the internet or computers, now you're going to compete with people who are going to use computers or are going to use the internet, right? And same thing when you hear the nomenclature about AI product manager or AI program manager. At some point, that's going to go away. I mean, a few years ago, we talked about mobile product managers because they were cell phones, or even I don't call myself, I'm an internet product manager. No, because the internet is everywhere, right? So that at some point, of course, will disappear. I believe, when I'm seeing outcomes with AI, in the future, probably a strong player in a team with AI will certainly outperform entire mediocre teams. Like literally, if you know what you're doing and you're strong there, think about AI supporting you, right? So probably the last question here for the team. Do you think in companies we're gonna see teams are gonna be downsized or not with the presence of AI down the road? And any guess?
I think it will depend on company to company because, for example, as you gave, there are two phases for product development. So for the first phase where we are doing all the research, we are doing product research and all, that could be easily that we can do easily with the help of AI. It could just like we have an abstract amount of information and data, like you did all the meetings with multiple clients. So you can help the AI, the AI can help you to put all that into some certain sort of format which you give. But AI cannot help you with the solutions, like what actually the consumer needs, what's the need of the consumer. So that thing, I think, so it will depend on industry to industry, like downsizing.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that, it depends, but if not downsizing, at least reshaping would be, restructuring the team would be the need of the hour when it comes to AI. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and Vincent, I'm seeing comments here. Yeah, supercharged with AI. You're bringing very good points. I think the short answer is that I don't think no one really knows at this stage, but I'll share also my 2 cents. I agree. I think the answer is it will depend. It will depend on the company. It will depend on the team. But what are those factors? I mean, I'll give you an example. In my case, the business I'm running, we have very good gross margins, right? So well, today I have to say no to a lot of functionality that we can deliver on the roadmap because we of course have limited funding of what we can execute. In my case, I would say we're going to focus on providing more outcomes, right? Probably with the same cost. We don't have a cost problem. That will be the approach. However, another company where they may be struggling with cost, right? Well, they may be willing to still get like the same revenue, or maybe if you hit like basically as far as you could go in a market, right? You don't have an opportunity there for growth, then well, those profiles of businesses where cost probably is a concern, you'll probably see an impact there. But I honestly see these AI as an opportunity for everyone, and make sure you're going you're bringing your skill set up with this, right? Like same as we were saying with with the age of when computers were introduced, or the internet or cell phones. Make sure that you really understand how to use that. You're gonna compete with other people who are gonna have that, but I think there's an opportunity overall, right? And especially for when we think about team topologies and the product team, I think it's an opportunity for an expanded responsibility as well. I know, as you were saying, for the product discovery phase, a lot more to be leveraged there as well, right? So, yeah, any questions?
Eric, you mentioned a product or a piece of a product that did translations for 40 different languages. I was watching one of the PIT shows. If you're into ER at all, emergency room operations, the PIT is a great medical series. And they had a patient whose language was unknown to everybody, and they were literally unable to communicate with this person for hours and hours and hours. Meanwhile, her physical condition was degrading minute by minute. So it was a race against time to find somebody who could speak her language. Have you thought about taking your technology, your product outside of public safety to maybe healthcare or other industries where real-time translations and other real-time, I guess, communication services could be very helpful?
Yeah, we do, and that's a great question, Mark. The new mission statement for Motorola Solution is solving for safer, which we changed in a few years ago from help people be the best in the moment that matter. The reason was really to expand our portfolio horizontally, in order to empower public safety, not only for law enforcement and fire departments, but also at hospitals, schools, right? And we're growing horizontally in the portfolio. I mean, if you've seen the Motorola Solutions acquisitions lately, we acquired a Vigilant, which is a access control in buildings, right? Camera system with, by the way, very powered with AI as well, right? For image recognition. And certainly the use case you mentioned, absolutely. I think we're integrating the ecosystem more and more end to end through all those facilities, I definitely see that functionality being transferred also to the enterprise space too.
So let me give you one use case from my memory that I think is very, very familiar to you. So let's say somebody, an officer gets shot in the field, right? He pushes his emergency alarm button, which activates something on a console that basically says, we've got an officer in trouble, officer down, officer down. The set of procedures that would be required, normally you would have to figure out the location of that officer and then triangulate probably the 4 or 5 closest officers to his or her location, dispatch them to his or her location, as well as the paramedic would have to be dispatched, and it's probably a fire company to support that, right? And you would probably use ShotSpotter or something like that to see if there's any way they could figure out, well, where did that shot come from and where's the next one going to come from? So it's about, I can imagine 6, 7, 8 steps that are, need to be followed up on. Couldn't it just literally initiate those and then ask the dispatcher, is this what you want to do? Confirm yes or no. And then with a single keystroke, they could initiate 7 or 8 tasks almost simultaneously.
Yeah, this is a great use case, and I'm like, Mark, that you're looking at this end to end. That is certainly an example where probabilistic versus deterministic functionality would be key. Having public safety officers asked something by AI is absolutely acceptable and recommended for our business, right? So always with the permission with the person in charge.
Well, the dispatcher in this case, I assume, would be in charge, right? So whoever is the 911 dispatcher would say, yes, you've got it right. Everything's there. Push the button, go. Otherwise, nope, I don't want to do step 3. I want to skip step 6 or whatever. Healthcare is the same way, right? So my MRI comes back. My doctor analyzes the MRI, and then the AI can determine, well, what's the next step beyond this, right? What's the prognosis? What's the therapy of choice? What's the first, second, third choices here, and then lay all that out. And the doctor and or the patient can make the decision, I'm going to go with this, yes or no, right? I mean, AI is not going to make the decision, but the AI can prompt the decision, right?
Absolutely.
Which is ironic because we talk about prompting AI, but in a sense, AI in turn will be prompting us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Good point.
Any other questions or comments for Eric?
So Eric, like, I was just, it was a great, everything that you shared. I just wanted to add like one thing, like at the end of the day, AI is actually a machine. But one of the key things to do during a product development is to empathize with the consumer. Like we need to know actually what the consumer wants, what actually they feel, and what actually they think. At the end of the day, AI can only summarize and reorganize the data, but it cannot understand the feeling. At the end of the day, it is a machine. It might be enhanced to be a more human as as we go along, but at the end of the day, it would be a human. At the end, final judgment would be from let's say from the heart of a person, from the empathy factor would be from a person's perspective, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Renak. I completely agree.
But remember too that a lot of Motorola's business is B2B, or even arguably B2G. So they're dealing with state and local governments that their users, you could consider them consumers of sorts, but they're not the ones buying the product. They're not the ones writing the check. They're not the ones writing the laws or the policies or the procedures or the constraints that the system, whatever that system is, and whoever supplies it has to be compliant within, right? 7 days of storage on the memory backup, or full redundancy on a hot switch over radio system. These are things that the users may not even be aware of, but are actually built in to the network for resiliency, for reliability, for I guess discoverability. I mean, to be able to legally discover the information that's sitting in that system and retrieve it, I don't know, 30, 60, 90. What's the current requirement? A year? Multiple years?
It will depend on the agencies. I've heard requirements from 30 days up to multiple years. It's substantial. And actually, yeah, Mark, you're right. We have to go through extensive compliance, especially right now we have the cloud. Where is this data going? I mean, customers need to comply. And in particular, in the government space in the United States, we have what we call the US Gov Cloud versus FedRAMP Cloud, which FedRAMP is more for federal agencies, which have even a higher requirement for compliance and security. And then US Gov is more for like state and local agencies such as police departments and fire departments. But yeah, I mean, we spend significant amount of energy. We have to, going there, making sure we're checking all the boxes, regulations, and our customers expect us to do that. And this is very costly for us, but we don't have a choice. It's fundamental.
The digital radio systems back in my day were designed against something called APCO 25, and maybe that's still the standard, right? But it was something that I think Motorola was first to market with, I think in part because we helped craft the requirements and help craft the standards. So don't ever underestimate the value of standards in this industry. I know almost everything we teach at Northwestern is about users and customers and consumers, but there's a whole big world out there that has very little to do with consumers, right?
Yeah.
Traditional consumers in that sense, right?
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Let's give him a round of applause, guys. And we're going to move on to the assignment. So, Eric, if you want to drop off, that's fine with us. Or you can stick around either way.
All right. Thank you. And yeah, we'll be in touch, Mark, for more activities to come this year.
Maybe you'd like to do some office hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Meet the students one-on-one, face-to-face. So
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. That was definitely in my plan. So yeah, we can talk more about that offline.
Sounds good.
Organize.
Take care.
All right. Have a
Bye.
good day. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, let's quickly pivot to the assignments. For team one, you were looking at managing technical people. This was a video that I put together years ago that wound up being one of the most popular videos I had ever done, with something like 30 or 40,000 views. It was talking about the transition from being an engineer to being a manager, right? And all the considerations and all the ramifications. I've even shared this with my son-in-law, who just recently got promoted. Ironically, he got promoted to being a manager without any pay raise at all. And I don't know if that's still common, but it sounded to me a little bit unethical. Maybe that's common. Maybe people get made a manager without any extra dollars, right? Any thoughts from team one about what were the biggest challenges from the transition from engineer to manager, and what are the classic mistakes? You guys did get a chance to look at it, right?
Yeah, I can comment.
Okay.
I'm part of group one.
Okay.
So I feel like one of the biggest challenges that we face is that engineers are highly technical people, and then when going into managerial roles, you're dealing with a lot of people from different backgrounds, and just being able to like work with different mentalities. As engineers, we can be very result driven and not very people driven like a marketer could be. So just working in those different areas is something that you have to learn once you get up into those managerial roles.
I agree. I mean, there's a lot of squishiness that comes with management, and there's a lot of precision that comes with engineering. We like to get the answers right to the second or third decimal point. Meanwhile, managers are dealing with emotions sometimes, or perceptions, or not necessarily things you can easily measure.
One of the more important things, like when you mentioned in your video, Mark, like if a person who is not willing to be monitored and being under a microscope, if he does not like that, being a leader is not a part. Being a leader should not be in their leaderboard in their future, because a leader, be it like as you said, the president of any country, or the leader of your specific group, he would always be under a microscope, and each and every of his step would be monitored. So if a person who cannot who does not like to be monitored, he should not look for being a leader.
Yeah, just look at the way we put our presidents under a microscope. If they stammer, if they miss a word, if they use the wrong word, if they trip and fall on the stairs to Air Force One, it's all over. I mean, everybody knows about it. They talk about it for days and days and days. So yeah, if you don't want to be under a microscope, don't become a manager. If you're a shy, reserved person who doesn't like to be criticized or observed, don't be a manager, right? Find other lines of work. Maybe traditional engineering without the management. I mean, just simply staying technical might be a good answer. So how is managing engineers different from other types of individuals? And this might be at the heart of what is engineering management, right?
So like when we are working with other individuals except engineers, one of the most critical things is you have people who are not who are holistically developed. They try to look over all aspects of our product. For example, as Eric was mentioning, for like during a product development, one thing is like we have to do research and all. But as far as engineers go, they are more towards result driven, and they are more focused on their work. It does not matter what is happening in the society. It does not matter how their product will affect the customers. They don't matter with that. They are given a task, they will do that. So I think one of the biggest problem managing an engineer is to uh, tell them that you have to align with the goal and see what the product you are developing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, getting the bigger picture, like engineers are very much, as Nick mentioned, that very much result driven and focused on their work. But transitioning from a technical role or an engineering role to a manager would be like, getting to know what is the bigger picture. And that transition is kind of hard for people, for engineers specifically.
Yeah. I talk about engineering capacity, and really this is our ability to deliver work. In some companies, it's assumed to be infinitely elastic. So you can keep pouring work into an engineering organization, but if you don't expand the capacity, all that happens is you're adding delay, and you're adding delay to every project that's inside that organization. So I think as a manager, assessing capacity, making commitments based on capacity constraints, making impact statements that are meaningful and consistent, and being able to say, hey, you want me to take on that new project? You need to hire 2 more people, right? Without necessarily saying yes to every new project without any added resource. All that happens is everything gets deprioritized. So hopefully that capacity discussion came through. Video 2 was about the sins of the engineering profession. Not trying to get religious here. All I'm trying to do is understand, hey, we made a lot of mistakes. I mean, engineers, we think of them as the smartest people in the room. Maybe we are, but that doesn't make us perfect, and it doesn't mean that we've never made mistakes. Any thoughts about what are these sins, and how do you basically how do you avoid them, right? And what might be at the root cause of some of these mistakes we've made? Thoughts?
Yeah, I can probably get group 3 started. I think in general, as engineers, we find solutions to problems, but we don't often think far enough to realize that those solutions in themselves could cause even more problems. So I think basically how to avoid that sin, as the video discusses, is just to put sustainability and certain impacts on the environment, on health and safety at the forefront of all these solutions that we're coming up with, so that they don't in turn have negative impacts on like our surroundings. And we've been talking a lot about AI and like moving into that direction. It may seem kind of virtual and like intangible in a sense, but data centers are involved in AI, and those have a lot of negative environmental impacts. But really just putting at the forefront of like everything that we design, every product that we develop, what the longevity of those solutions are, and what impacts they could have on society.
Great example, Memphis. I mean, just
Yeah.
all I have to say is the word Memphis, and the word, I guess, is Colossus and Colossus 2. We're
Right.
talking about, a good old Elon Musk
Yeah.
slamming his way into, the world's fastest, quickest deployment of the world's largest data center known to man.
Yeah.
How did he do that? I mean, we all applaud the fact that he could do it in a matter of months, when it could have normally taken a matter of years or even half a decade or more.
Right.
How did he do that, right? Well, let's ask that question as engineers, and let's ask it as environmentally aware engineers.
Yeah.
He slammed in there some gas turbines that are polluting both noise and the environment.
Exactly.
He's using up all the water. And so he's using wastewater, right? And it's just, okay, that sounds great that he's using wastewater and he's putting it to good use.
Yeah.
Where would that wastewater normally have gone? And what watershed is being depleted as a result? And, we have to ask the next logical questions, I think, and understand that everything is part of a system, and those systems, everything is connected. So when we say, okay, we're using wastewater and we're turning it to vapor, okay, that sounds amazing. That sounds wonderful. But wait a minute, that wastewater was eventually going to go into some watershed somewhere, and that's going to be depleted in the future.
Yeah.
It could very well be that Memphis is going to go dry. Look, a lot of cities in the west of this country are going dry right now.
Yeah.
And in Texas, right? And that's without data centers. We don't even need data centers. We're able to abuse the environment without it, right?
Right.
So engineers were part of all these great, great constructs and we've solved a lot of problems, but we also caused a lot more. So I'm a great believer in technology, but I guess the last few years I've really started to question that kind of unified belief that somehow technology will always get us out of our mess. It seems like technology always gets us into our next mess.
Yeah.
So I've become, as I get older, a little bit more cynical about this stuff. Okay, so we talked about how to avoid those sins for group 3, group 4. I guess what duty do we have to society?
Mark, actually, I just wanted to like add a little bit.
Sure.
If you
Yeah.
like in the first seminar that we have, second seminar, the last seminar, you said that being in product development does not only mean advancing technology, as Amma just mentioned, and you also said that being in product development does not always mean to maintain and like advanced technology. There has to be some sense of responsibility in the human, and then as engineers, we should move that. For example, as you gave the example of like maximum churning for refrigerators. Like if I buy a refrigerator and you gave that example of your water filter. That water filter is they make this water filter very specific for the refrigerator, so you have to buy from them. So it just increases the amount of waste filters that are actually we are putting back. So which is not responsible engineering. So I think that is like one of the most important thing right now which we need to think.
I think the marketing folks would say you did a great job of increasing share of wallet. You've done a great job of increasing the value of the acquired customer, which are all metrics. So we have to be careful of the things we measure and be careful that there are secondary and tertiary effects of the things we measure. We're all aware of dashboards, but dashboards can be very dangerous, techniques here as well. So I think you kind of covered then what our duty to society is, and that is to look long term. If anyone's looking at the long term implications, it better be us, because I can tell you the business people are never going to go down that path. They're very focused on the quarterly results, the annual results, the bottom line, and if you can't measure the impact of the bottom line, they're not going to be all that interested. So we have to, I think, take a more holistic view because we can see it as a system, right? Man, video 3 was interesting. I hope you guys found it interesting. Managing growth. Group 5, how are companies, cities, and organisms different? Any thoughts?
Yeah, hi, Professor. I'm from Group 5.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a very interesting video. I mean, Jeffrey West is a physicist who has studied how living things, cities, and companies grow. And he's basically said that the survival depends on how systems use resources and how they innovate. So I think one of the examples that he gave was cities keep growing because people's interactions create constant innovation, and companies struggle with bureaucracy, and animals have a natural life limit. And yeah, it was a very interesting video. It helped me and the team to understand how growth, innovation, and the patterns are linked together.
And size isn't always necessarily an advantage, right? Because size can actually limit your ability to grow, your ability to innovate, your ability to be agile. I mean, I can see that Motorola was huge at one point, but its ability to do all of those things was definitely diminished. There's something called the law of large numbers, which basically says, if you're running a $10 billion business and you have 10% loss of revenue every year, that's $1 billion of new business you have to generate just to break even, just to stay flat, right? Because you've lost $1 billion of business every year. You have to replace it. I could go to Motorola with a great product idea, and this has happened, and they've thrown me out of the office. They say, well, if it's not going to generate $600 million of sales in the first 2 years, and I laugh. It's just like, are you kidding me? Do you know what it takes for any new product idea to generate $600 million of sales within 2 or 3 years? And they smile and they say, of course we do. And it's just like, well, very few startups are going to be able to check that box. And as a result, all the great ideas you guys can come up with, you're going to have to bring them to market probably on your own. You're not going to get huge companies like Google necessarily to invest in them simply because of the law of large numbers, right? I think it also talked about exponential thinking, that whole idea that you have non-linear approaches to growth. What was your thought, Group 6, about the nonlinearity of growth and what it means for how we normally project businesses and revenue?
Yeah, so I'll talk on behalf of Group 6. So the video states that how, as human brains, we are wired to specifically think in a linear format. So we expect, let's say, if the growth is 15% or 12% for the current year, the growth the next year would be same. But when we come to complex things like businesses or cities, organizations, that's not how it works. So the hockey stick graph comes into picture where the growth can be exponential. But the catch with exponential growth there is that there's a constant need to stay there, otherwise it can get exhaustive. So that's where he refers about the innovation treadmill, where we have to keep running, which means we have to keep innovating faster and faster to stay in that graph. Also in the video, it refers about the sigmoid S curve, which was also helpful to understand that usually when a company starts, it has a pattern of a slow growth and then an exponential graph where the growth doubles up and then again it reaches a plateau region or a decline. So he also referred Walmart there, where the growth was exponentially high around 90s, 80s, and then slowed down around 2008. So that signals that how the business needs to identify where they stand in the graph and accordingly take steps, accordingly maybe rebuild a new product to start a new graph.
I love it. That's great. And I think, I hope all teams were able to watch all three videos, even though I kind of broke it up a little bit. I think all three videos probably have value to every incoming MEM student. I'd like to think that as MEM students, we have a systems perspective, right? We can see the bigger picture. We have a long-term orientation for our vision, and that we are not necessarily linear in our thinking. We can think non-linearly, which has some interesting implications, right? I saw my grandson for the first time in about 3 months, and he's about 13 years old. He sprouted easily it seems like 3 or 4 inches in those 3 or 4 months. He was almost unrecognizable. He was taller than his sister, taller than his mother, and I'm thinking to myself, this kid might wind up being 7 feet tall. I mean, how this is going to be one tall kid, right? But it doesn't really work that way, right? I mean, the growth spurt you have between 12 and 13 doesn't continue for the rest of your life, right? It might level off at 15 years of age, and he may not grow another inch after that. So human organisms, animal organisms, corporations, there's some interesting correlations here. So I'm glad Jeffrey was able to get you thinking. I wanted to give you guys a quick quiz. It's not really a quiz, it's a poll. I want to see how we are doing in MEM in terms of exposing you guys to corporate America. We did a lot at the beginning of the quarter. I'm not sure we can keep up this pace. My grandson can't keep growing at this same rate either. So I guess I'm curious. Hopefully you guys can see the quiz.
I think it showed up for like a second and I don't see it anymore.
Really?
Yeah, same for me.
Then it just went away as soon as I tried to
How
click.
can that be? Okay, nobody actually was able to. I can't share the results because there are no results. It's bizarre. Relaunch poll. Here you go. Continue. All right, we've got almost everybody engaged here. I'm going to end the poll in about 10 seconds. Okay, let's show results. All right, so most of you said it was excellent. A bunch of you said it was okay. Nobody said not so good. I can tell you that we've really worked hard to get you a lot of early exposure, to get you plugged in as best we can, especially up front. Here's my observation. previous cohorts tend to drop off in terms of their engagement as time goes on. So winter quarter, spring quarter, students start to disengage, or maybe they get more inwardly focused, and the exercises and the events and things that we do become deprioritized. We will have a very big event in February, which is our industry night. It's going to be chaired by one of our fantastic faculty, Don McNeely. He's already got some speakers lined up. He's got the entire evening more or less mapped out. So I think that will be exciting. We'll bring everybody we can, every alum, every friend like Eric, every friend of the program. And hopefully you guys will have a great chance to network. But I think networking is really triangulation. And the way I would have you do triangulation is find a company and a job description that you think you are very well qualified for, right? And then find a connection between that company and Northwestern or Northwestern MEM. If there's an MEM connection that is maybe connected to me or somebody on faculty, we will be glad to write a warm, we call them warm introduction letters or emails or notes to try to get you and your application to percolate above the rest, right? We can't do this every day. We can't do this for every, every application you have, but we'll certainly do as best we can to make those warm introductions for you. Hopefully that will get you the traction you need. We know it's tough out there, but we also know, if you look at the numbers, that a lot of the last cohort did find good jobs. There's a link I can share with you about how they track themselves, internships and full-time positions. I can share that link. It's actually a Google spreadsheet. The guy who innovated that was Karan Gupta, and he's going to be speaking next week. He's from Deloitte. I don't know, who knows Karan? Okay, I see a couple of you. So Karan is going to talk about Deloitte, what's happening with consulting, what's happening in his space and his experience. He was what I would call one of the stellar leaders of the previous cohort. He really kind of was head and shoulders above the rest in terms of really trying to bring everyone together, the spirit of collaboration instead of a spirit of competition, sharing and helping each other along the way. And I think he can tell you something about Deloitte. Should be interesting. Any last comments before we go? All right, guys, it's after 2:30. Thank you for your time today. I'll see you next week, next Friday.
Thank you, Professor.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well,
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, right?
Thank you, Mark.
Enjoy the weather, by the way. It's not always going to be this nice, right?
It's actually a little bit too warm.
Too warm. Somebody from India claiming it's too warm. I've been to India, my friend. I was
Actually,
sweating.
sir,
I was sweating before I left the airport.
I am actually from the warmest part of India, so I am feeling like a little bit home. So that's
I'm with you, Ranak.
Well, Mumbai airport, man, I was sweating and just picking up my bags.
Yes,
like,
sir.
oh my God. So I had a whole 2 weeks of that, right? Take care.
So like, yeah, okay.
Okay, take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Prof.